a few weeks ago, you issued a fairly important decision in regards to the driverless car. And I wondered if you could take us through explaining exactly what that decision is, because I think there was some confusion as to whether the government was recognizing the driverless car, whether we were saying Google is the driver or is it the operating system, and who regulates that. So I just wondered if you could explain what it was. And then I wanted to talk a little bit more personally with you about how you came to that decision. If you were, for example, have you been in a driverless car?
I have, actually. So, you know, my view of driverless cars is that they're coming. And we, the U.S. government, can either be in the engine room, so to speak, designing the regulatory structure for this, or we can take a more reactive position, which is probably where our default is. But the advantage we have with being more proactive about it is that we can begin to not only educate ourselves, but to begin working with industry, so the standard setting is being done in real time as the technology is being developed. And I think there's an advantage to that. So we see safety benefits from autonomous and connected cars. There's some studies that suggest 80% reductions in accidents, which is pretty astounding when you compare the fact that as human beings, we've had a steady decline in fatalities over time, but we're reaching a point where most of the reasons why we're seeing accidents have to do with human error. So if you eliminate that factor or mitigate it, hopefully we see better safety benefits. So that's one of the big driving forces for us. But how do we get there? We have a lot of different regulations that impact the car itself. Think about us as almost like the Consumer Product Safety Commission. We want to make sure that when you buy something in this country, that it is safe. So our National Highway Traffic Safety Administration has a set of vehicle standards that every vehicle has to meet. And we went to industry and we basically said, tell us where our standards pose a challenge for driverless vehicles. So for instance, BMW came to us and said, we want to have a self-parking car. We want the driver to be able to step outside the car, apply the function, and have the car park itself. Well, our standards presuppose that a human foot is touching the brake pedal. And so that presents a direct challenge to that. And so we've given an interpretation that provides more flexibility, so now BMW can bring that into the marketplace. Similarly, Google asked us to consider the driver, the car as the driver, or the system that operates their autonomous car as the driver. We have indicated that we would interpret it that way. But that doesn't mean that that interpretation carries the day. There's still several other standards that Google is going to have to meet in order to get this into the marketplace. So I think it's one hurdle, one major hurdle that could have posed a challenge for a long time, but we've now made that decision.
And just to clarify, did you define a driver yet?
Well, heretofore the driver's been you and me. But now that there is capability for the vehicle to take on the same basic driving task you and I did, the idea that we would interpret that system, the software and the hardware that connects it, as the driver is a big change for us.
And also to contextualize further, the regulation of operating system BMW, the state of California, there's many, many layers of potential regulation here. Is there thought at the outset to kind of pave that road a little bit easier?
So one of the other things that we've pledged to do, and by the way, the president's put a $4 billion request in his budget for more research and effort around autonomous vehicles. But one of the things that we have also pledged to do over the next several months is to work with the states and others to develop best practices and some guidance that we hope states across the country will adopt. And so if you think about it this way, the U.S. government, and I'm being very simplistic here, the U.S. government basically establishes standards for the vehicle. The states basically establish the standards for driver qualifications. So you get your driver's license from California, but you can't drive the car until we approve the car at the federal level. So there's still places where the states have more of the definitional work to do, but we are working with them over the next several months, and we've promised by the summer to put out some guidance that hopefully will move the ball along.
Most of us are familiar with the driverless car as the buzzword. You mentioned BMW and the self-parking cars. Is there anything else in your, I imagine experimentation comes to you first. Is there anything else you've seen that you want to let us know about?
Well, I don't know if I could tell you about all the stuff I've seen. No, look, I think in transportation, this is a very exciting time, and I see this really across different modes of transportation. If you think about, we were first walking, and then, the wheel introduced, technology to make transportation move a little faster. And really, since the wheel, we've just been improving the technology that we control. And now we're at a stage where now the technology can take on more of the operating tasks that we always assumed we'd be doing. And whether it is, you call them drones, we call them unmanned aircraft, whether it is autonomous vehicles, whether it is new age technology that is now being placed in our cockpits of our planes to help us move more efficiently. There's a lot of automation that's coming into transportation, and I think it's exciting. There are obviously challenges with it. We don't want to put anything out there that's unsafe, and there's obviously growing issues that need to be understood and thought about as it relates to security and privacy, and we're staying on top of those.